August 29th, 1350. The sea off England's southern coast is aflame with war. Amid the roar of waves and the crash of wood, a crowned king fights shoulder to shoulder with his men. This is not legend. This is King Edward III of England, taking the battle directly to the enemy. For years, the Castilian fleet, allies of France, had ruled the English Channel, raiding merchant ships, seizing goods, and mocking English power. They attacked with impunity, even sinking English vessels within sight of the coast. Edward, already a hero of Crécy and Calais, saw this as more than an insult. The Channel was England's lifeline. If the sea fell to foreign hands, so would the kingdom's trade and security. He vowed to lead his fleet personally and reclaim the waves that protected his realm. This wasn't just a campaign. It was a declaration that England's king would never be a spectator in war. Every kingdom has a breaking point. For Edward III, it came when the sea itself was no longer safe. By the mid-14th century, the Hundred Years' War was reshaping Europe. On land, English longbowmen had crushed French knights at Crécy, 1346. At sea, however, victory proved harder to hold. The Kingdom of Castile, a maritime powerhouse with skilled Basque and Cantabrian sailors, joined France against England. Their large merchant war cogs dominated the Channel. Admiral Carlos de la Cerda commanded these vessels, half traders, half warships, escorting convoys loaded with Flemish goods. When English merchants pleaded for protection, Edward III took personal command. His eldest son, the Black Prince, 20 years old and already a proven warrior, joined him. His younger son, John of Gaunt, still only 10, came aboard to witness battle, not as a fighter, but as a student of war beside his father. Edward ordered around 50 English cogs fitted for battle, ships crewed by knights, sailors, and longbowmen. These weren't sleek vessels of later centuries, but stocky merchant ships refitted for war, low in the water, slow to turn, but deadly up close. The fleet gathered off Winchelsea, Sussex, a fishing port soon to become the stage for one of medieval Europe's most dramatic naval duels. The English came for vengeance. The Castilians came for profit, but the sea would decide who went home. In late August 1350, the Castilian fleet of roughly 45 ships sailed north from Flanders, their holds full of goods. Though technically merchants, they were armed for combat and confident in their superiority. Their cogs were broader, taller, and heavier, high-sided fortresses capable of crushing smaller vessels in boarding fights. But Edward had one advantage they didn't: initiative. He knew the Channel better than any foreign sailor. He used its tides and wind to place his fleet directly in the Castilians' path. As the first enemy masts appeared, English trumpets blared across the water. The king's fleet formed a line, sails taut and weapons ready. Chroniclers describe Edward's banner snapping in the wind as he cried out, "Ha! The Spaniards are upon us." Every man aboard knew what was at stake, not just treasure, but honor. What followed was no battle of distance. It was chaos, courage, and carnage upon the waves. The two fleets collided off Winchelsea around sunset. Ships rammed together with thunderous force. Arrows filled the sky. Crossbow bolts clattered against shields. The sea frothed, red with shattered wood and blood. Edward's flagship, the cog Thomas, rammed the lead Castilian ship head-on. The impact toppled the enemy's mast, but the Thomas sprang leaks and began to sink. Refusing to retreat, the king fought on until the deck tilted under his feet, then transferred his banner to another ship and plunged back into battle. Nearby, the Black Prince faced his own trial. His ship, La Bilbao, grappled with a towering Castilian cog. The Spanish boarded, outnumbering the prince's men. Water poured in through the hull, but the prince refused to surrender. Just as defeat loomed, the Earl of Lancaster's ship struck from the opposite side, boarding the enemy and turning the tide. The prince rallied his crew, shouting for God and England as they seized the deck. All across the channel, similar duels unfolded. Ships locked together, men hacking at each other with swords and axes as archers fired from the rigging. Fire spread across some decks. Men drowned in full armor. The battle raged for hours. The Castilian convoy, desperate to break through, found itself trapped and torn apart. By nightfall, 14 to 26 enemy ships had been captured or sunk. Carlos de la Cerda escaped on a smaller vessel, but the sea was littered with the wrecks of his fleet. The English Channel, once haunted by foreign sails, now glowed with the fires of victory. Victory was theirs, but the waves demanded payment in blood. As dawn broke, the scale of the battle became clear. The cog Thomas had sunk, and at least 2 other English ships were lost. Dozens of sailors, knights, and squires had drowned, their armor dragging them beneath the waves. But the survivors knew they had achieved something extraordinary. For the first time, a king of England had personally commanded and fought in a major sea battle, and won. Edward returned to shore at Winchelsea, battered but unbowed. His victory restored English confidence and silenced critics who doubted the crown's ability to protect the realm's trade. Chronicler Jean Froissart, who recorded eyewitness accounts, praised Edward's valor, writing that he fought not as a king, but as the bravest knight upon the sea. To the English people, it was more than a triumph. It was redemption. The Channel, once the highway of invaders and raiders, was now England's own again. Before Drake faced the Armada, before Nelson's cannons roared at Trafalgar, there was Edward III at Winchelsea. The Battle of Winchelsea was more than a clash of ships. It was a turning point, the dawn of England's naval identity. It showed that the nation's strength would come not from its borders, but from its ships, its sailors, and its will to control the waves. Though fought with cogs and crossbows, not cannons and sails of empire, the battle demonstrated the timeless principles of English sea power: boldness, aggression, and unity under a daring commander. While other medieval naval fights followed, like La Rochelle, 1372, Winchelsea stood apart for one reason: its king was there. No monarch before or after would risk his life so directly in naval combat. The victory also reinforced Edward's image as a chivalric king, a brave, honorable, and blessed by divine favor. His example inspired generations. From Drake's raids in the New World to Nelson's command at Trafalgar, English captains carried the same message: that the Channel was England's sword and shield. Centuries later, the quiet Sussex coast hides its history beneath calm tides. Yet beneath those waters lie the timbers of lost ships, relics of the day England's sea destiny began. When historians trace the birth of British naval supremacy, they often leap forward to the 16th century. But the story truly begins here, in 1350, when Edward III fought like a knight and won like a king. As the sun set on that August evening, the sea grew still. Among the drifting wreckage stood Edward III, his crown glinting faintly in the fading light. Around him lay silence, the silence of victory. The Battle of Winchelsea was not the largest or bloodiest battle of the Middle Ages, but it was among the most symbolic. It proved that England's fate was inseparable from the sea, that her kings, knights, and sailors would always look to the horizon and see their future written on the waves. And so began a story that would echo across oceans. From Winchelsea to the Armada, from Trafalgar to every sea England would one day call her own. If you love forgotten battles that shape nations, like, share, and subscribe to past historical events, where the past sails again.